adjust the mic. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
They say beauty fades. I say beauty is deep in your heart. Beauty is there. Sometimes you can't feel it or see it, but it's there deep in your heart. Beauty is feeling happy about yourself. We all wear masks to hide our beauty. I say beauty is in your heart. Beauty is the deep feeling inside your heart that makes you smile, laugh, giggle, and much more. Beauty raises your low self-esteem that many girls have, wondering how beauty feels when you're not pretty. But I say beauty is deep in your heart. My name is Tatina Cowell. That piece was written by my niece, Asia Cowell. I have been praying about what God will have me to say tonight, because I know we have stories that are hard and traumatic, and I told God, I said, help me to not just make this about a day. My niece had just turned 17 the year she was taken from us. And when I think of her, I do my best to not focus on my last memory being her getting out of the car with me and not seeing her again, because I dropped her off to do something that she loved to do, which was to do hair. Not knowing that later I would call that house or call her cell phone and she wouldn't respond. And I contacted a friend of mine who stayed down the street to send her son. And when she sent her son, they said nobody was there. And I remember just praying and praying and praying, because my family, we needed to know where Asia was. You know, when I think of my niece, when I say I don't want to think about that day, I think of someone she was my little best friend. She was a big sister. She was like wise beyond her years. I would be out and she would just randomly send me a text message with some profound quote. You know, how many 17-year-olds sending out wise quotes, you know? But she would just do that out of the blue. Even in the bedroom, she would post them up on the wall, and she would encourage her little sister to do the same thing. She was a dreamer. She was ambitious. She had so much to offer. And so for me, when I think about September the 7th, a lot of people can say that, you know, they have loved ones that was a treasure. Asia was a treasure. She was a world changer. There were 3 perpetrators who had to go to court for her death. Personally, I hold 4 people responsible, which was her boyfriend who she broke up with. A lot of times when we talk about domestic violence, we zone in on the adults, but it's also a teenage problem too. Sometimes as adults, we think it's this beautiful thing when somebody wants to call you all the time, text you all the time, and we don't recognize when love, or what appears to be love, becomes obsession and possession. But the beautiful thing about Asia, she started to recognize that she didn't want this foolishness in her life. She chose herself. So most of the time when I think about my niece, most importantly what God laid on me, she was a generational curse breaker, because my niece chose herself. She got out of something that was unhealthy, what appeared to be love. But she knew. She would just say to me, Auntie, I'm just sick of the foolishness. That was her favorite phrase. And I think about having the opportunity to bring happiness into her life. I try my best to not go to her last moments, because I knew how my niece laughed. And to think about her cries, I fight that a lot, because she was so much more than fear, when God laid it on my heart to share this particular poem, during her prayer vigil, one of her teachers came to me with a binder of poems, and I've been typing them up, and what's been hard is that, like I say, Asia was a go-getter, ambitious. To read her pieces, and she's talking about her future, and it's like, my God, you know, what do I do with that? Because it got taken from her. But when I stand here now, and whatever doors God opens, I have to continue her legacy. During her prayer vigil, I met so many young people and teachers that loved Asia. I knew that my niece was good. I knew that she touched and changed hearts and minds. I got messages by mothers who would say, can my daughter come to the funeral? And I remember being at the funeral and this teenage girl just came to me bawling, crying. She was going to Votech with Asia. She was being bullied. Asia embraced her. She was like the outcast, but Asia embraced her. When we would drive down the street, a homeless person asking for money, Aunt Tina, give this person the money, so she would help me find a route to get back to the person so I could give them some money. You know, when she started doing hair, being an entrepreneur, she was like, Aunt Tina, I want to know how I can be, God been blessing me. I want to help homeless people. You know, one of the identifying things I said to the detectives when they said that a body was found, I said, did y'all find the virginity rocks, flip-flops? I have not seen anybody since Asia. She was proud about being a virgin. She was proud about being honorable. She was proud about just being strong and speaking up. And I'm so grateful that when I think of my niece, I think of somebody who had the strength to walk away from something that was unhealthy and not good for her at that young age. I appreciate God to have these 17 years with her. I wanted more. I wish I could have more. But for every time that God allows me to share Asia, I'm going to think about somebody who is triumphant, who valued herself, who loved others, who was compassionate, who was kind, who was a protector. She was my brown baby. That was her nickname. And I'll tell anybody this story. For black folks, you know, usually when we come out the womb, we kind of light skinned. When I saw Ada, she was so brown, and I remember looking at my niece like, oh, you look different. But that's what told me she was going to be different. So she became my brown baby that day. And so whenever you see me, if I posted something, I say, brown baby, we're talking about Asia Cowell. She was a queen. She has a legacy. She was just so many things. And I could sit here and I could cry and things. You know, the trial is finally, we didn't have a trial. We actually, the 3 persons involved pleaded guilty. And it was something about the 3rd person that God really used my niece to help me to take a step toward forgiveness. Because it just reminded me that these cycles have to stop. These cycles of abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, it had to stop. The 3rd young lady that was involved in my niece's death, she was a teenager. She had been molested since she was 4 years old by multiple people. Her parents failed her, CPS failed her, the educational system failed her. And all I could think to myself, her bonus mom, I call her my sister, when she was telling me her story, because she was the only one that could go to the hearing, I just kept thinking about Asia. Asia would have befriended this young lady. Asia would have tried to help her. And it did something to my heart So it's like I'm choosing to not stay angry because I can't represent Asia. I can't honor her. I can't honor God with anger. Yeah, I get triggers, and for real, forgiveness is a process. So I'm not gonna see it like I don't have some days. But I'm going through my process because I need to honor my niece and I need to honor God. And I won't let her death be in vain. So if y'all have teenagers in your lives and they are in unhealthy situations, intercede for them. Talk to them. That's one thing I did with Asia. We talked and talked and talked until she was like, I'm out, Auntie. And she got out of it. And I'm so proud of her for that. She was happy, she was free, she was herself. So instead of just looking at these situations, intercede for somebody, pray for them. If you got children in your life, talk to them. They need us. Let's stop judging the younger generation because some of them is a process that they're going through. It's a cycle that has to be broken. And we have to help them to break it. I don't think that's too hard to do, y'all. Thank you.